They told you winter heat has to be expensive. They told you that if you want to stay warm when the temperature drops, you need gas, a heat pump, a giant solar array, or a heating bill that keeps climbing forever. That sounds reasonable right up until the grid turns unstable, fuel prices spike, and the system you trusted starts failing at the exact moment you need it most. That is when the real lesson appears. Heat is not just something you produce. Heat is something you store, protect, and release on your terms. Right now, in some of the coldest places on Earth, people are using one of the simplest thermal storage ideas you can imagine: a steel container. Dry sand. A pipe system running through it. No miracle chemistry. No fake free energy. No fantasy machine. Just physics, mass, insulation, and timing. And if you build it correctly, a $300 sand battery could become one of the smartest self-sufficiency projects you ever put on your property. Not because it replaces every other heating system. It does not. Not because it turns a badly built house into a warm one. It will not. But because it gives you something most people do not have when winter starts going. Wrong. A thermal reserve? A buffer. Time. That matters more than people think. Cold rarely destroys control all at once. It does it in stages. First comfort, then dexterity, then judgment, then options. By the time many people realize they are in a real heating emergency, they are already behind. The house is bleeding heat through the floor, the walls, the pipes, and the roof. Their backup fuel is lower than they thought. Their decisions get worse because they are tired, stressed, and cold. They are reacting instead of controlling. That is why this project matters. This is not about building some weird prepper toy. This is about learning how to bank heat when energy is available and pull it back out when it is not. If you care about self-sufficiency, off-grid living, DIY systems, and real self-reliance, this is exactly the kind of forgotten survival trick worth understanding. Now let us start with what a sand battery actually is, because this is where people get confused. A sand battery is not an electrical battery. It does not store electricity. There are no cells, no charge cycles, no inverter magic inside the sand. What it stores is thermal energy. Pure heat. The sand is simply the storage medium. Every material can absorb heat, but not every material behaves well at high temperatures. Water stores heat well, but it boils, expands, and creates pressure problems. Some materials corrode. Some degrade. Dry fine sand is different. It is cheap, stable, easy to source, and capable of holding a large amount of heat when you pack enough of it into a contained, insulated structure. That last part is everything. Enough mass, proper containment, serious insulation. Miss one of those and the whole system weakens fast. The simplest way to understand this is not as a heater, but as a heat bank. You deposit heat into it when you have a source. Solar thermal. Excess solar power converted into heat. A rocket heater, a wood-fired charging system. Anything that can move thermal energy into the core. Then the sand holds it. Later, when the outside temperature drops and the house needs warmth, you pull that stored heat back out through a coil or exchanger. That is the real rule here. You do not win winter by producing heat every minute. You win winter by controlling when heat gets released. Most people think only in terms of live heating. Turn it on. Burn fuel. Stay warm. But that leaves you dependent on constant input. The moment the input fails, the whole system becomes a liability. A sand battery changes the problem. It lets you build stored advantage before the emergency gets worse. Now let us talk honestly about who this is for. If you live in a city apartment, this is not your first move. If you have no land, no outbuilding, and no safe place to install a thermal mass system, this is not your easy weekend project. But if you have a homestead, a rural property, a workshop, a shed, a greenhouse, or a detached utility space, this becomes much more realistic. It also makes sense for people building toward off-grid living step by step, because it fits the exact mindset that matters here. Use simple materials. Build useful systems. Depend less on fragile infrastructure. So, what do you actually need? First, a steel container. For a serious home-scale version, think in the range of a 200 to 250 gallon steel tank as a useful minimum. You can go larger, and larger usually means more stored energy, but it also means more weight, more material, more complexity, and more space. Go smaller, and you start losing the main advantage, which is meaningful storage duration. That gives you the first big rule. If the mass is too small, the system fails before the weather does. A tiny tank may still get hot. That is not the same as being useful. You are not trying to make something warm. You are trying to store enough thermal mass to matter after charging stops. Second, dry sand. Not beach sand full of salt. Not damp construction sand. Not mystery fill. You want dry, fine silica sand if possible, because consistency matters and moisture is the enemy. A 250-gallon tank may take roughly 800 to 900 kilograms of sand. And here comes the second rule. If the sand is not completely dry, do not use Italiano at high temperature. Moisture becomes steam. Steam creates pressure. Pressure creates risk. Moisture also hurts efficiency and accelerates corrosion in the parts that matter most. If you have any doubt, dry the sand before filling. Spread it in the sun. Keep it protected from humidity. Take that step seriously. Third, the heat exchanger coil. This is the heart of the system. Usually black steel pipe or another high-temperature compatible metal pipe routed through the sand mass. The coil is how heat moves into the battery during charging and back out during extraction. More pipe surface area means better transfer, but only if it is packed well and insulated well. The coil should stay centered inside the tank and run through enough of the sand body to maximize contact. If it touches the tank wall in the wrong places, you bleed heat into the shell faster than necessary. If you leave large gaps around it, you reduce transfer efficiency. That leads to the third rule. The coil does not need to look pretty. It needs maximum contact with the sand and minimum wasted space. Fourth, insulation. This is where weak DIY builds usually die. People get excited about the tank, the sand, and the charging source. Then wrap the outside like a backyard water heater and wonder why the heat disappears. High-temperature insulation is not optional. Ceramic fiber blanket is one of the strongest choices for serious heat retention. The tank needs insulation on the sides, the top, and the bottom. Yes, the bottom matters. Concrete will steal heat all day if you let it. That gives you the fourth rule. No insulation means no battery. It is just a warm object, cooling in public. Now, let us build it in the right order. Start with the site. Do not put this thing inside your living space unless you have proper fire-rated separation and know exactly what you are doing. The simplest practical setup for most people is a small outbuilding, shed, or workshop near the house that keeps the mass protected from weather, accessible for maintenance, and physically separated from sleeping areas. It also makes underground, insulated pipe routing much easier. Your foundation has to be real. A sand-filled steel tank is heavy. Very heavy. Once filled, a 250-gallon system can easily push past a ton. That means you need a proper slab or support base that can carry the load without shifting. Then place the tank and install the pipe penetrations. This is not where you guess. Bad welds become expensive regret later. Before a single grain of sand goes in, your pipe entries and exits need to be welded, fitted, and tested. Pressure test the loop. Check for leaks. Check again. Fixing a leaking coil after the tank is full is exactly the kind of stupid pain you only make once. Once the tank is ready and the coil is secure, fill the sand in layers. Do not dump it in and call it good. Add sand gradually, settle it, compact it around the coil. Then add more. The goal is dense contact and minimal air pockets, air gaps, wasted space, and weak heat transfer zones. They reduce performance exactly where you cannot afford it. That gives you another rule worth remembering. Loose fill makes a weak battery pack. Eat tea leaf. A little expansion space at the top. Seal the cap properly, and then move to insulation. Wrap the full body in high-temperature insulation. Cover and protect that insulation with an outer shell so weather, rodents, and physical damage do not destroy your work. Then insulate every connecting line. Every foot of poorly insulated pipe between the tank and the house is heat you paid to store and then donated to the air. This is one of the most common reasons DIY systems underperform. The tank might be decent, but the connecting lines bleed energy the whole way. If you are running underground, use proper insulated sleeve or pre-insulated pipe. If sections are exposed, protect them like they matter, because they do. Now let us talk about how this system actually serves the house. The cleanest setup is usually a closed loop that transfers heat through a heat exchanger into your home heating system. If you already have radiant floor heating, that is ideal. Hot water baseboard systems can also work well. Forced air can work too, but it is usually less elegant because you are converting thermal storage into heated air through another device instead of using direct hydronic distribution. If you are building toward off-grid living, a low-voltage circulation pump tied to solar power gives you a strong combination. You are using solar power to move stored heat instead of depending on the grid for live heating. That is exactly the kind of layered self-reliant system that holds up better under stress. Now, the charging side. You have three realistic options. The first is solar thermal. This is one of the most logical pairings. If you have sun available, solar thermal collectors can produce high-temperature fluid and move that energy into the sand battery during the day. Instead of wasting solar gain when the house does not need it yet, you store it. The second is a wood-fired charging source, especially a high-efficiency burn system, a rocket-style heater, or intense short duration. Burn feeding thermal transfer into the battery fits the exact principle that makes thermal mass systems powerful. Burn hard. Transfer heat. Store it. Then release slowly. The third is excess solar electricity, converted directly into heat. This is not flashy, but it is simple. If your solar array is already producing more than you can use at certain times, resistive heating can turn that surplus into stored thermal energy with very little complexity. That gives you one more rule. Charge fast when energy is available. Release slow when energy matters. You are not trying to heat the house, moment by moment. You are building a reserve. Now we need to be honest about performance, because this is where weak channels either overpromise or get laughed out of the room. 250-gallon sand battery is not a miracle system that heats a drafty house for free all winter with no effort. That is fantasy. What it can do is hold a meaningful amount of thermal energy that may cover roughly to 2-4 days of heating support in a smaller, insulated structure, depending on climate, charging temperature, and delivery efficiency. That is already powerful. The reason it sounds smaller than the thumbnail promise is because the real secret is not the battery by itself. The real secret is the battery plus the building envelope. Tight house. Lower heat loss, longer useful output. Leaky house, massive heat loss, shorter output. The system rewards good structure and punishes bad structure. That is why the most important truth in this entire video is not about the tank. It is about the house. Every dollar you spend reducing heat loss makes the battery more valuable. Air sealing, insulation, window protection, floor treatment, roof integrity, and thermal zoning all multiply your storage value. If you cut your heating demand in half, your stored heat effectively lasts twice as long. That gives you the rule most people should have learned before buying expensive equipment. Reduce heat loss first, then build storage, then worry about how fancy the system looks. Now let us cover the mistakes that quietly ruin this project. Wet sand is mistake number 1. Steam, corrosion, weak performance, risk. Poor insulation is mistake number 2. The battery may still get hot, but it will not stay useful long enough to matter. A leaking coil is mistake number 3. If your transfer loop leaks after the tank is filled, you have turned a smart build into a nightmare repair. Uninsulated pipe runs are mistake number 4. People love to focus on the main unit and ignore the lines. That is how they lose heat before it reaches the house. Bad placement is mistake number 5. Too far from the house, too exposed, poor drainage, weak slab, combustibles, too close, or impossible maintenance access. All avoidable, all common. And here is one more mistake that is not technical. It is mental. Treating this like a replacement for every other system. Do not do that. Treat it as a force multiplier, a thermal buffer, a self-sufficiency upgrade, a system that reduces dependence on gas, lowers exposure to outages, and gives you time during winter disruption. The people who get the most out of this do not use it as a fantasy machine. It is part of a layered survival strategy. That means backup heat still matters. Pipe freeze protection still matters. Water access still matters. This channel is about survival, not magical thinking. Real systems overlap. They do not exist alone. So, why does this project matter so much? Because it teaches the right lesson. The system does not save you. Understanding the system saves you. When modern heating works, people forget how fragile comfort really is. They stop thinking about thermal mass, storage, timing, insulation, reserve capacity, and control. Then the grid stumbles. Fuel gets expensive, or a storm cuts power. And suddenly they are learning the basics in the dark. You do not want to learn in the dark. You want to build while conditions are still calm. That is what self-reliance actually means. Not panic buying. Not pretending you are off-grid because you watched a few videos. It means building real capability before you are desperate enough to need it. So, if you made it this far, comment and tell me one thing. What is your real winter weak point right now? Heat, water, insulation, fuel, backup power, pipe freeze risk. Say it directly. That tells me what to make next. And it tells other people in the comments. They are not the only ones thinking about this. And if you are serious about self-sufficiency, off-grid living, DIY heating systems, solar, power, and forgotten survival tricks that actually make sense in real life, stay close, because this is exactly the direction we are going. But heat is only one part of surviving cold weather. A warm shelter does not save you if infection gets inside it. A small cut, a cracked hand, a dirty wound. One mistake with hygiene, and suddenly the real danger is not temperature. It is what starts spreading under the skin while you are busy trying to stay warm. That is where the next problem begins. In the next video, we are going straight into wound care when there is no hospital, no easy refill, and no second chance. Keeping heat is what buys you time. Knowing what to do with that time is what keeps you alive.